Okay, so I'm building a configure price quote system for general contracting construction companies. What's required is when someone's doing an estimate as a salesperson, they measure up the building parts that they're going to do work on. So, as a quick example, they might replace the shingles on the roof, and when they do that, they'll take measurements of the roof and then start creating tasks and assemblies and components from that. All that to say is that that is central to the job itself, and when someone provides a quote, they can provide one or more quotes. So there's a whole bunch of objects that are central to the job, and a whole bunch of objects that are central to the quote. So you can kind of see above this line here is stuff for the quote, below the line is stuff for the job. So this is kind of used as a template, so to speak, to build a quote. So every time you build a quote on a job, it's going to use most of this information and then add a couple layers to it, like what kind of material, what's the labor rate for this particular type of shingle, for example. So that's what I need to do. When I create a quote, I want to create a JavaScript that snippet or inline or function, I should say, really, that will look to see what are the tasks in the associated job. And the job, when they select it from here, and based on many relationships, it gets to here. Um, I have a model that selects the tasks based on the job. That's not a problem. What I then want to do is loop through these tasks, looking to see every time I open the quote whether or not there's a quote task associated to the task, because there'll be times when things change, like sometimes where the estimator say, oh, you know what, we're not going to do that for this job on any quote, so they'll delete a task. So by default, because it's master detail, it'll remove the record that's in the quote because it's master detail. But there are times when they add a task, so every time they open up a quote, which is done through a pop-up, I want to run some JavaScript to look to see are there any tasks that are yet to be added as a quote task. Pretty straightforward. I can do that with the looping, but I'd prefer to do it in JavaScript because then there's other things that need to be created along with that. For example, once I have a quote task, I need to know that there's a quote task labor record created, right? And again, it's master detail, so if the task is deleted, I don't have to worry about deleting any of the corresponding because they're always master detail. But I want to make one for this that's based on a quote task and its associated task. And similarly, but slightly more complicated because it's done through two relationships, the quote task product. So there's the task, but also it has many pieces of material, and each piece of material has a product choice. So every task will have a labor component, and every task will have multiple or one or more products associated to it. Now these have to be created if they're not yet created on opening the pop-up for the quote. And I'd like to do that through JavaScript. So loop through these, looking to see if there's one of those. And similarly, once I create one of these, create one of those. And once I create one of these, look to see how many of these there are for each task, and then create a corresponding set for the product. So this could be, it'll be always one of these and one or more of these. Could be one, could be 100. It's likely going to be one and 1 to 3, typically 1 or 2 kind of thing, but you get the idea. It's 1 to as many as they've assigned as far as materials for the task. Okay, so you open up the quote through a action framework, which is a row action. So a row action does a whole bunch of things by JavaScript, then opens up the pop-up. So that JavaScript will create a quote task if it doesn't yet exist, and will create a corresponding task labor every time because it'll only ever need to create one, and it always needs to create one because it otherwise wouldn't exist because of the master detail. And always create at least one of these, as many as there are of these. So I'll email you a link for this, and we can start from there.